welcome to Getaway Day. This is episode 76. I am Mason, he is Gautam, and we've not been here for a while. So you may have noticed this is not Wednesday. This is in fact Tuesday, September 27th as we're recording this. You will be hearing this on Wednesday morning if you listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of those good podcasting apps. This is going to be our new day moving forward. We've kind of had some works-related stuff that's been coming up, mostly on Gautham's side, so blame him, that has caused us to move our night to Tuesdays, which, if you remember, was actually the original night of Getaway Day back in 2020 when we started. Or 2021. 2021.
That was Mondays.
It was Mondays? I don't know. I'm making stuff up now, I guess.
But we're making it closer to Monday, so take it as a good thing. You're getting Getaway Day one day earlier in the week.
Exactly. So like I said, we've not podcasted in a couple weeks, so we've got a lot to catch up on. He and I were both out of town for a bit. Things just got a little bit difficult to set up a date and time to record. So with that being said, Gautam, how are you doing? What have you been up to? Give me your 3 biggest takeaways from baseball that the last couple weeks that does not spoil our topic for tonight.
All right. Well, last week I was actually in Virginia at a wedding for my cousin. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of partying for multiple days straight. So I'm still in recovery mode, but doing much better now and ready for the last 10 or 9 games of the baseball season. A lot is going on. Most of the playoff races are wrapped up for the most part. We've got the NL East one still going. We've got the second wild card, second wild card, first wild card in the National League still kind of up for grabs. But biggest takeaways from baseball are that the Cubs are over 500 in the second half. What's going on? I bet you didn't know that.
I did not know that. I assumed they still sucked, because they do.
Yeah. So I was actually also surprised to hear that, but they're blowing their lottery pick in next year's draft, but that's okay. Winning is a good thing. Other takeaways are that the Padres, I feel like, are being slept on a little bit. Everyone's talking about the Dodgers. They're having a lot of wins. They've got like 107 wins at this point, but I think the Padres could be really dangerous if they do end up making the playoffs. They've got really good starting pitching that's been doing very well recently. Even Blake Snell has been kind of dominant recently. You give me the third takeaway.
So I've got 2 takeaways, actually.
Okay.
So my first takeaway is that the Angels are wasting Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. Not really a new takeaway, but it's definitely still a thing. They have been playing okay baseball the last 10 days, but they're still 19 games under 500. So that's not great. Second takeaway, there is a lot of parity in baseball right now. We are going to have most likely 300-loss teams again this year. So the anti-tanking measures are clearly not working, at least in year 1. So we'll probably dive into that more here in a future week. But Washington did last night hit 100 losses to become the first team to do so. Pittsburgh is 57-97, and Oakland is 56-97. So pretty good chances there for those teams to hit 100 losses as well. Detroit is our next closest, and they can still do it, but I believe they would have to lose out, or actually they would have to go 2-8 in the final 10 games in order to hit 100 losses for the 4th team. So, but Kansas City has got above that magic 100 loss mark. So Yeah, so lots of parity in baseball, especially when you're looking at the 106 win Dodgers and the 101 win Houston Astros, the 97 win Mets, the 96 win Braves, the 94 win Yankees. Like, we've got some really good teams and we got some really bad teams. So, all right, so let's get into this week in baseball. So I think we need to start with the mammoth in the room. And that is Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is sitting at 60 home runs. The Yankees game is actually going on right now. Both of us do have that pulled up. So hopefully he does it during the podcast and then we can do a breaking news alert. What are your, I guess, thoughts? Like, just generically, like, how do you feel about this season we're having from Judge? Because
I think it's awesome. I mean, you can stack this season up against like many other of the greatest baseball single seasons in history, and he's right up there. Obviously, baseball is really tough, and it's only getting tougher. The competition's getting stronger. Players are getting stronger, and Judge is putting up like historic numbers, and the home run chase aspect of it and the Triple Crown aspect too are really, really cool things to follow on an everyday basis. It's one of those things like that kind of transcends just regular baseball fandom. It kind of seeps into mainstream culture more. People actually like know who Aaron Judge is at this point. A lot of people do now that didn't know who he was maybe earlier this month.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have kind of compared this to the home run chases in 1998 with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire as something that people were tuning in every day to see. And maybe it's not at that level, but they do have their eyes on this. And I think that's really cool for baseball. And it feels very retro, but I can't really say I remember like a home run chase at any time. I mean, other than Barry Bonds.
I was going to say
which
73 home runs.
Not that one. The that, but
the 755.
The breaking Hank Aaron's record.
Yeah. Okay. I feel that. For a little bit more about Aaron Judge's thing here, as most of you guys are probably pretty well aware, 61 is Roger Maris's record for the American League and for the Yankees. That number was surpassed in 98 for the first time by both Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire, and then later by Barry Bonds. All three of those guys do have kind of the cloud of steroids over their head. They are still the record. Straight up, 73 is the record. 61 is the American League record, however, and still the Yankees record. So this is still a really big deal for about half of the league. If Judge can manage to break this, it is pushing that number up closer to the steroid era numbers of those three proficient power hitters. And he's doing it seemingly, and I fully believe, clean, which is, I think, the key here. This is us seeing that this is still maybe not 70 is feasible, but 60 is feasible again, clean. Yeah. Babe Ruth did it twice. Twice? I think twice. Roger Maris did it once, and now Aaron Judge. And those would be the 4 clean 60 home run seasons. Now, Judge has not hit a home run in 7 days, and he is still sitting one shy of tying Roger Maris with about 9 games to go. So I don't feel like this is an if it happens question. This is a when is it going to happen question. This is one of the longest streaks of him not hitting a home run of the year.
I think it was 9 games was the longest he's gone. But the thing that I really like about what he's doing is that he doesn't really seem like he's too stressed about it, at least openly. Maybe he is. Maybe he's like, that's weighing on him a little bit. Because the crowd reacts in a really weird way. They're just kind of like, they kind of go silent at Yankee Stadium when he's batting. It doesn't feel like people are hyped up. They're just like on their phones taking videos. They need to be in the moment. You know, you're at a historic event. Plenty of other people are going to have a video of the hit. You gotta see it live.
Yeah.
But he's not like expanding his zone or anything. He's taking tons of walks as he usually does. And what I really appreciate about Aaron Judge is that he's an ultimate team guy. He never talks about really what he's doing. He's always talking about the team. He's always talking about his teammates. And he honestly may not care about the record that much, or he makes it seem like he doesn't care about the record.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll get there in the next 9 games.
Now, the question is, does he only tie it or does he pass it? I think he's probably going to pass it.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, he is no stranger to multi-home run games. He could do it tomorrow.
He could do it today. Like, he's actually coming up to bat right now. They just changed the pitcher.
Ooh, okay, so I'm going to get that pulled up here on the side, but don't let me get too distracted. So yeah, I mean, everything you just said is pretty much right on. Like, it's so weird seeing Yankees fans get quiet. Just in general, I'm not used to them being quiet. But like, it's so awe-inspiring that, like, I get it. We'll talk here in a few minutes. We're actually going to skip it and come back for a very good reason. I guess I didn't really give you guys a hint as to what the main topic of the day is, but we'll let that be a surprise. But we'll come back to the other home run thing here in a minute. But you're right on with Judge there. So what do you say we hop over to some of our other This Week in Baseball stuff, and then we get to our main topic?
Yeah, let's talk some managers and GM stuff.
All right, so you were way more in tune with managers and GMs, so you go ahead and take this one. And
sure. So there were a few moves in the last couple weeks in the front office manager kind of sphere. So Scott Harris is the new president of baseball operations for the Tigers. He comes over from the Giants, where he was the GM. Before that, he was an assistant GM for Theo Epstein with the Cubs. He's a pretty young guy, and obviously Detroit needed a new leader because they let go of Al Avila a while back. And I liked what Scott Harris had to say in his opening press conference. He's really going to be focused on improving the players that the Tigers have, player development. And we talked about the Tigers when they let go of Avila, that none of their players had really improved too much in their time with the Tigers. They had all these top prospects, great pitching prospects, Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, and those guys, they're way too young to judge at this point, but they haven't made the strides you would expect from those top tier prospects. So
in the same thing with all their pitching prospects that were really highly touted, guys like Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, Matt Manning. And so, right. Yeah, it's kind of a running thing with the Tigers. So
yeah, so that's one. I think they will also hire a GM probably during the winter. So new faces in Detroit. Don Mattingly and the Marlins have agreed to part ways. I guess it's a resignation technically, but it's like a mutual kind of thing. And we kind of felt like this one was coming probably for a while. Like, I thought it was going to happen like a year ago.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Donnie Baseball. He's a solid manager, but something doesn't seem to jive with him in that club. I don't know if it's roster construction that they're giving him. I don't know if it's him being a pretty old school manager. I don't know if it's a combination of the two. But one, I think we could both agree that the talent is not quite there yet with that team.
Yeah. But
I think this is maybe where Kim Ng is coming in and saying, okay, we're about to turn a corner. Let's get a new face in here and let's go into the future.
And we see that all the time with the new GM that keeps their existing manager. They might keep them for a year or two, and then they want to put their own stamp on it and go get their own guy. to manage the team. But do you think Mattingly is going to get another manager job? I wonder how he would do with a good team.
I don't know. How old is Mattingly now? See, he's about 70.
He's kind of old. He's almost 60, yeah, or 60-ish.
He's older than 60, I think. John Mattingly he's really only 61. All right. I mean, yeah, probably it only 61. I think he's probably gonna go out and try and get one more job, and I think there's quite a few jobs that are available right now too.
That's what I think we're gonna get to here in a second.
Yeah.
So 2 jobs that have been taken by interim managers, the Phillies and the Blue Jays. Both those teams are positioned to make the playoffs here. So obviously the manager gets the good credit in both those situations. So do you have any thoughts on either John Schneider or Rob Thompson?
I don't really know either one of them terribly well. What I will say is this. As soon as those managerial changes were made mid-season, these teams seemed to take off and move in the direction that they were kind of expected to go at the beginning of the season. Philly is not a juggernaut by any means, but they're still in wild card contention right now. I think they're actually in the 3rd wild card as we speak, a game and a half ahead of Milwaukee. Toronto kind of took off after Charlie Montoyo was let go, and they're in the 1st wild card spot in the American League. And so both of these teams kind of righted the ship. So doing that under these interim managers that were the bench coaches with these clubs.
Can I just interject for a quick second and say that Aaron Judge walked for the 3rd straight time?
Oh, good Lord. Actually have a stat on that here in a minute, if you remind me. But what I was saying, though, like, both of these guys have done a really, really solid job. It kind of reminds me when Mike Schilt came in for the Cardinals as the interim manager, and that club turned around. They made the playoffs. And I think they're going to get a crack to keep their job. Like, I think they've earned it. So I really hope that they stick with them.
Yeah, I haven't followed the Phillies or the Blue Jays, I guess, in-game decision making from these managers, so I can't really speak on that. But I will say that Rob Thompson seems like he's way less uptight than Joe Girardi, and that may have been just kind of what the Phillies needed. I mean, there's no one more uptight than Joe Girardi.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That just doesn't fit that team's vibe, in my opinion. So anything that is a change from that is a positive. And the Phillies have actually played quite well, and they played really well even when they didn't have Bryce Harper. So, hats off to them. And I'm happy that the Phillies are finally going to be making the playoffs. So fingers crossed that they don't blow it in the next 10 games. But
when was the last time they made it? Was it 14?
No, it was before that. It was it
2009 when they won the series?
Well, they won it in 2008, but they made the playoffs in 2012 or 11. That was the last. I think 11 actually.
Yes, because that was Chris Carpenter versus Roy Halladay in the NLDS. Yes, I remember that. 2011. All right, real quick, I'll give you my Aaron Judge stat that you reminded me of. I was going to say this when we were talking about him. Aaron Judge has only been intentionally walked 18 times this year, which is kind of amazing, seeing as he's got 60 home runs. When Barry Bonds hit his 73, wasn't he intentionally walked 120-something times?
Yeah, I thought it may have been even more than that, but it was something ridiculous.
I'm surprised that, and I think this was Ben Verlander maybe that tweeted this.
I have something to respond to that. This is completely off topic, but the intentional walk has kind of gone away. It just doesn't exist as much as before, because what they'd rather do is just try to throw some pitches to get the batter to chase rather than just give them the free pass. Yeah. So it's like an intentional walk that's not fully intentional.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just give the 4 fingers to Aaron Judge, though. He deserves it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to pitch to him, just put him on base.
He got one last night in
That's
extra
true.
innings.
But anyway, back to the topic at hand. We do have one more.
Yeah. So Dayton Moore, the president of baseball operations, the Royals, who's been there since 2006 as the GM and then the Pobo. He was let go. And the thing about Dayton Moore is that he actually did some stuff that was really good. And they won the World Series. They made the World Series in 2014, won in 2015. So he had plenty of leash after that. But besides that stretch where they were really very good, the rest of the time they've been either a fourth or fifth place team basically every year. So yeah, I feel like it was time to go for him.
Yeah, I feel like it was probably time to go for him kind of right after all the really big pitching prospects came up and all just bombed. I think that was probably the time for him to go. So it's maybe a year and a half too late. But
right.
Oh well.
And in that situation, they're not probably going to be hiring a new president of baseball operations because the second-hand man to Dayton Moore, JJ Piccolo, got promoted basically, and he's going to be taking that job on full time. They probably will hire a GM though.
Okay.
But I feel like the Royals are sort of similar to Detroit, but in a smaller market. They have not made they have plenty of talent, right? All those first round starting pitchers that haven't really panned out other than Brady Singer.
Yeah. And because you got Bubich, you've got
Daniel Lynch,
Jackson Kowar.
Yeah.
And then even Hernandez from he was an international signing, but like even he's like a young, really pretty highly touted pitching prospect for them. And he's not really been that great either.
No.
So like they're kind of wasting their pitching talent just like Detroit. So yeah. So I guess with that being said, with all those kind of announcements and John Schneider and Rob Thompson, at least in my opinion, probably keeping their job, like who do you think's going to have openings this year? Like the Nats and the Orioles are both looking at selling the teams. Are they going to clean house? Or are they going to go out and get new GMs, new managers? Or are they going to run with what they got for another year as they transition in? And then what other teams do you think are going to be in the market?
Yeah, I think this could be really potentially a lot of big changes, especially with managers this offseason. With the Orioles, I don't think they're not going to make any moves. There's a lot of optimism with that team, and everyone's saying Brandon Hyde did a great job. I don't think he's going to get fired. Davey Martinez, I mean, you said it. They're already a 100-loss team. There's 9 games to go. Like, if you lose that many games, you're unless it's your first year, you're pretty much going to be on the hot seat there.
Yep.
I think they got to get a new manager.
Yep. The only thing that Davey did was maneuver him to a World Series the year he took over the team. So
I will say the Nationals kind of got screwed over by the year that they actually won the World Series, because they didn't even have like a regular defending World Series championship season the next year because of COVID. And then 2021 happened, and then it was just downhill from there.
Yeah. All right, but what about another team that's looking at selling, the Angels? Like they've got an interim manager right now.
Yeah.
Does that seem like maybe a fit for Donnie Baseball or the Royals that we just talked about getting a new GM? Or are they going to get a new manager? And we've got a couple other teams that could be in the market for some kind of a change. The Rangers, the Reds. Like, what are your thoughts on some of those teams?
Yeah, so Royals I think they need a new manager. I'm sure you would probably agree. I know you're not a big Mike Matheny fan.
Oh, God.
I don't know exactly what he's done to.
I loved Mike Matheny until 2004. To be fair.
Yeah.
And 2012, 13. Then I was kind of done with him.
He was manager back then? Wait, what?
TLR retired after the World Series in 2011.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So, yeah. So, I guess you could say until 2013, I was a Matheny fan. Now, probably time to go.
Yeah. I think the Angels will probably not go with Phil Nevin. They probably want some more of a forward-thinking manager, but you never know with that organization what they're going to do.
Yeah, and
Ranger
with Art selling the team, maybe it makes it a lot more complicated there as well. So
Rangers have an interim manager. I couldn't tell you who it is, so I'm sure they'll be in the market as well. I feel like the Reds maybe could move on from David Bell at this point. And then I don't think Tony La Russa is going to be back, and that may just be health related.
Yeah, but he is done for the rest of this season. His doctors basically said he's not traveling anymore. They've been kind of watching him for some heart issues, so hopefully he gets better. I don't really want to see him put a uniform back on, but I didn't really want to see that when he came back. So,
Well, basically, in summary, this could be a really active offseason that's kind of unusual because usually maybe there's like one or two new managers, but this year we could see a lot.
Yeah. All right. So what do you say we go ahead and move on to maybe that other home run guy and then our main topic?
Sure.
All right. So, as you guys may or may not know, I am a big Cardinal fan. Pretty big Cardinal fan.
What?
Like I know. I keep it really, really well hidden. I don't think
We've been doing this podcast for 2 years. I thought you were a Pirates fan.
Right?
This whole time.
Like, yeah. I don't think I've talked about the Cardinals a single time on this podcast. I definitely don't overdo it, ever. But this team is continuing to make history. And when I say this team, I'm actually talking one specific guy this time, and that is Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols on Friday was sitting at 698 home runs. Comes up first game of the series in LA against the Dodgers, the team that he played with the second half of last year. He ends up taking, I believe it was Andrew Heaney, deep in the third inning. So he struck out in the first inning, came back up in the third, took Andrew Heaney deep. Comes back up in the fourth inning, sitting at 699 home runs. And then they brought in a reliever at that point.
Bill Bickford.
And I don't know if he was intentionally hanging that pitch or if he just like really missed his location, but Albert got every stitch of that ball from Phil Bickford and pulverized number 700, becoming the fourth player in history to reach 700 home runs. This was a pretty, so it's a really big feat in general. 700 home runs. I mean, we've only seen it one time in our lifetime, and most of those home runs were before we were born. Well, maybe not most. About half of Barry Bonds' home runs before you and I were born.
I don't think half, but I mean, a good chunk of them, yes, for sure.
Yeah. But Albert, since 2001, he's been the Cardinal for my entire life, including even the time that he was in LA from 2012 to last year. But at the beginning of the season, he needed to hit 18 home runs just to pass A-Rod for fourth in the all-time home run list at 697. He needed 21 home runs this season to get 700. And he managed to do that with, I want to say it's like, should have had this number pulled up. He managed to do that in 333 at-bats.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I do remember I asked you at the beginning of the season, I don't remember if it was on the podcast or not, but I asked you if you thought he was going to be able to do it. And I'm pretty sure you said no.
I definitely said no.
Yeah. I will actually say that I thought there was a chance because he hit 17 homers last year, and he's hit 21 this year. So.
Yeah, but then you start looking at kind of how his season was going. Like in 30 ABs in April, 2 home runs. 48 ABs in May, 2 home runs. 38 in June, 0 home runs. So for the first 3 months of the season, he hit 4. He needed 21. Then you come into July, 50 ABs, 3 home runs. Okay. That's a significantly better clip than the rest of the year, I guess, but not really that impressive, seeing as he hit 2 in 2 different months. But he's sitting at 7. 14 to go. Then August comes around, 8 home runs and 61 at-bats. That was the moment that it's like, oh my God, this is actually possible. And so he still needed, so that put him at 694. So it's looking like, okay, he's probably not going to get a ton more at bats. So 4 more home runs seems feasible, or not 4. 3 more home runs seems feasible to pass A-Rod, but 6 just still seems like a stretch in the last month, because there's no way that this guy, almost 43 years old, is going to put up 2 consecutive months of just being one of the best hitters in the league. And then he did it again, and he's hit 6 home runs and 65 ABs. A significantly worse batting average this month compared to last. In August, he was hitting 361 with his 8 home runs. This month, he's hitting 246 with his 6. So it took him a little bit of time to get there, but yeah, it was impressive watching, because I still did not believe it all the way up until this month. And then now he did it on last Friday, which was the 23rd. Like so I was on Discord with a whole bunch of people as he hit both of those home runs, and I flipped out. Like, I don't even know if Discord, like, if they could hear me, because Discord will like cut out the audio if you get too loud. So I would have to ask, and I see a couple of them here in the Twitch chat. But did you guys actually hear me when I was screaming at home run 700, or did it cut out? But yeah, that was a huge deal for baseball in general, because who's the next guy that's going to hit 700? I don't think he's in the league. I don't even know if he's alive. Like, this is probably the last time this is going to happen for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and just to add on to Albert Pujols in general, just, obviously future Hall of Famer, living legend, was before, whether he was going to reach 700 or not, but the company, the players that he's joining in the 700 club, all 3 of those guys, they hit their 700th home run when they were each 39 years old, and Albert's 42. So it's just incredible that he's played this long. He's so old, and he's still doing it. It's amazing.
And the jury's still out on if he's actually 42 or if he's 46.
46.
Yeah, isn't it like 3 or 4 years
2.
that they?
It's 2.
Oh, it was only 2. Okay, yeah. So he's 42 or 44, almost 45. My bad. Still more impressive if he's older. Yeah. But yeah, that was just, it was so surreal to me. Like, I legitimately, like, every article I read for like the next 2 days, and then after I got off that Discord, I just cried. Like, it overwhelmed me that much. Like, this dude has been basically my entire childhood, and I've been paying attention to him since he debuted. Like, that's like my first baseball memories is him and Big Mac. And so it was so cool for me. But it did get me thinking. We're doing this kind of retirement tour for Albert and Yachty, right? 2 guys who are going to be going into the Hall of Fame pretty much guaranteed. Well, not pretty much guaranteed. Guaranteed going into the Hall of Fame. Albert, first ballot. Yachty, probably first 2 or 3. I don't think it'll take him long if it does take him multiple years. Then I was thinking about it, and like the Cardinals kind of have this weird dichotomy where it's like we have the old guard, and then we have this new, I don't want to say young, because Paul Goldschmidt's 35, and Nolan Arenado's about to turn 32. But we have like basically 2 baseball generations of outstanding players. And Albert and Yachty, and Cardinals Red Jacket Hall of Famer Adam Wainwright. Not a Cooperstown guy, but Hall of very good. And then you have Nato and Goldie, who Goldie is both of them are right there in the MVP race this year. Both of them have had outstanding careers so far. And I think have a really pretty solid shot at making the Hall themselves. So that puts us at 4 Cooperstown Hall of Famers, potentially, for this Cardinals team. And then Adam Wainwright is a Hall of Very Good Cardinals Red Jacket guy. So how often has that really happened? And that's something that I was kind of thinking about. So I went and looked it up. Since 1900 in the modern era, there have been 309 seasons. So that's one team, each season that a team had 4 or more Hall of Famers on a roster. It has happened 309 times. Now, some of those have been the same team with the same Hall of Famers on the roster in back-to-back years. So I filtered it down. 206 unique combinations since 1906. So essentially, you're having about 1.5 new combinations a year on average of 4+ Hall of Famers. But that's going all the way back into the dead ball era. That's going back into some really different eras of baseball. So I looked a little bit more recent into the divisional era, which is 1969 to now. In that time period, which is 53 years, there have only been 46 individual team seasons of 4 or more Hall of Famers on a roster. Only 2 of those seasons. And it's only 25 different teams that have done that. The 1970s Twins and then the 60s, 70s Cubs were the only 2 teams that had 5 on a roster. So in the divisional era, this is a pretty rare feat. We have less than 1 a year, and really less than 1 every 2 years as far as like a new combination of players coming about. So my question that I want to discuss with you now is, what teams in baseball today could potentially be in that group? Are the Cardinals the only one? Am I completely out of my element saying the Cardinals are one anyway? So I guess I'm going to ask you this first. Do you think I am on the right track with the Cardinals being a 4 Hall of Fame team? The 2022 version of the Cardinals?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think of all the teams that we're going to discuss, I think they've got the 4 most obvious Hall of Famers on their team right now.
Plus Tommy Edman, so 5.
Plus Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
The Hall of my least favorite players, yeah.
All right, so we have potentially 1. I want to explore if we have more than 1. If this is going to be an anomaly year where we could potentially have 2, 3, 4 teams of 4 or more Hall of Famers. So I think maybe the right place to start is the juggernaut, the LA Dodgers. Like, right off the bat, you've got some fantastic guys to start. You got Clayton Kershaw, absolute, no doubt Hall of Famer. He could retire today at the age of like 34. He's in. Mookie Betts. He potentially
the most underappreciated player of this generation, maybe.
Potentially one of the greatest right fielders of all time. And like statistically, that's not me making that up. Like I think Baseball Network has actually gone on that tangent a whole bunch of times. So go look that one up. But then who else we got? Like, those are the 2 slam dunks in my opinion.
Freddie Freeman's got a good case. I think he's probably still got several years to play. He's got the MVP under his belt. He's got the World Series now. He's maybe win some more World Series with the Dodgers. Like he's definitely gonna have a good case at the end of it.
Yeah, and I mean, Freddie's sitting just under 300 home runs, just under a 300 career average, 50 career WAR, and he's only been in the league for 12 years. So, obviously not Albert Pujols' rate for a first baseman as far as his career rates, but Albert is the greatest right-handed hitter of all time. So you really shouldn't expect that. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good call there. So I think that's 3, right? Kershaw, Mookie, Freddie. It starts to get a little bit more difficult here, even for the Dodgers, which this is a team that you look at it and you're like, this is hands down one of the most stacked rosters we've ever seen. But like, who do you think's next? Is Trey a Hall of Famer?
I'm going to say no, probably not, but he has a chance because he's still fairly young. He's just 28. He's got, 7 seasons under his belt. He's been a star player for at least like 3 years of that now. So maybe he kind of reached superstardom a little late, but he is definitely a star right now, and I think he's got several more prime years ahead of him. So maybe he's got a shot at it.
Well, and I do think that he might have an interesting case for the current era of shortstops, because the current era of shortstops, this is probably the era of the power shortstop, right?
Yeah, I think it's the era of the best shortstops we've ever seen in history of baseball, right?
Yeah. So Trey is not like the biggest power hitter out of all of them. I think Correa is probably one of the bigger power hitting shortstops. Corey Seager has more home runs. But where Trey comes in is he's the high average guy that hits 300 or higher quite a bit, and he's got 228 career steals. Like, that's something that is unheard of in today's day and age. So I kind of think he'd have an interesting case. Just because he is that kind of complete package shortstop. He's great defensively. He's incredibly fast. He's got the hit tool. He's got some pop. He's a pretty constantly 20 home run guy. He maxed out at 28 in 2021.
2021. Yeah.
He's not a big strikeout guy, which I mean kind of goes hand in hand with being a really high average guy, but I think he's got an interesting case. So then two of the other guys, kind of looking at the pitching side, we've only had 2 like recent-ish relievers that have made the Hall of Fame, and that is 2018 and 2019. We put in Trevor Hoffman and Mariano Rivera. So are we going to see a guy like Craig Kimbrel make the Hall of Fame?
You know, if you'd asked me this question in 2018, I would have said absolutely. Craig Kimbrel's definitely going to the Hall of Fame. Every year of his career, he's been basically the best closer in the league. Done it for like near 10 years. His career, he had like the highest strikeout rate of any player in baseball history at one point. Tons of saves, lots of success. But then since then, it's kind of been a struggle. He's had some stretches where he's been really amazing, like the first half of 2021 before he got traded to the White Sox. He was on a different level, and then he sort of regressed in the second half, and then this entire season has been a major struggle. It seems like he could be out of baseball in like 2 years, but I also wouldn't put it past him to kind of resurrect his career and then have like another 2-3 really dominant years. Like, it might still be in there, and then he could make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, he's probably the best closer of our generation, but then all of a sudden he just kind of fell off a cliff.
Yeah, so that's what happens with these relievers. Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at it at the same time, like he fell off a cliff, but he is he did it for such a long time that I'm not even sure it matters that he fell off a cliff. It would be interesting to see how voters are going to look at it, because relievers don't typically last 8 years in just absolute dominance as the best reliever in baseball, and he did. Yeah. So he might not. I mean, it might not even matter.
Yeah, I was curious about Craig Kimbrel's WAR total. He's at like 20 WAR for his career.
That's a lot for a reliever. What was Trevor Hoffman and Mariano?
I was going to look at Mariano, just the gold standard of relievers.
Are you Fangraphs or BREF?
Fangraphs 39 WAR for Mariano Rivera. So okay. Double what Craig Kimbrel.
Well, and Mariano was a unanimous first ballot. Like Trevor Hoffman, Fangraphs WAR 25.9. And he got in pretty quick. Not first ballot unanimous, but
a lot of people could make the case and have made the case that Trevor Hoffman shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. The only reason that he is because he was a closer and he got all those saves.
I mean, I kind of think that's a fair reason to put him in, though. In my opinion. If you
believe in the save, sure.
I mean, it had its point in history. I don't think it's as important now, but in the era that he did it, it was really important. So I think that's kind of the point of the Hall of Fame, is to represent an era and how that game was played. So I'm cool with Hoffman, but now we're looking at Kimbrel, and I think he was kind of the tail end of that. And he's kind of like the last remaining guy of that archetype, essentially. So, all right, and then the last guy for the Dodgers that I thought probably not, David Price. I think for a while David Price was incredibly dominant, especially his early years with the Rays. Then he went over to was it
Tigers
Detroit?
And Blue Jays.
Yep.
Red Sox, all those teams.
And he had a really good career for a while. He fell off a couple years ago. He's only been around for about 12, 13 years, so I don't know that he had the longevity of the dominance to make the Hall of Fame, but I thought he was worth bringing up.
Yeah, I think he's right there with like Adam Wainwright. Like they're in the same bucket, maybe.
That's fair. That's actually that's a pretty common bucket there. The Hall of very, very good.
Yep.
So sure. All right. So with the Dodgers, we're looking Mookie, Kershaw, Freddie, maybe Craig Kimbrel, maybe Trey Turner. So we potentially have a 4 there. It's not a lock. So I don't know what team do you think has a really good shot?
I think the Astros have a shot. Maybe not for a 4th guy, but maybe there's a 4th guy that's a young guy. But they have 2 guys that are, one guy for sure in Justin Verlander going to the Hall of Fame. We don't need to discuss him really.
He might even be a unanimous first ballot. Who knows?
Could be, yeah. Next guy is Jose Altuve, who has a pretty good case, I would say. I guess we have to see how the rest of his career plays out, because I don't know how many more years he's going to play. He's still kind of playing at a pretty high level. Maybe he's not the MVP guy he was a few years ago, but he's a really darn good player at this point, and he's 32 years old.
I mean, he's put up 5 WAR in 4 of the last 5 seasons.
Yeah.
2020, we'll throw that out. So he's been 5 WAR in 3 of the last 4 real seasons, and 4.3 in the year that he wasn't at 5. So he's still really good.
Mm-hmm. And then the young guy, Jordan Alvarez, who we've compared him to Big Papi as a DH, and he is like playing better than Big Papi was at this stage of his career. And David Ortiz started like he didn't become Big Papi until a few years into his career. Alvarez is still incredibly young, and he's a guy that he could hit 60 home runs in a year, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He has so much raw power, and his eye is just phenomenal. So, yeah, so then it gets a little bit difficult finding a fourth guy there. But with Alvarez, I think the interesting thing is going to be he'll be like the first case of a guy who was only a DH. I mean, he's played some outfield, but not enough to call him an outfielder. He is a DH, has been since he came up.
Played 55 games this year.
Yeah, but he's a primary DH from his rookie season, though. Like, so, but in like Papi was a first baseman for the first like half of his career before he became a full-time DH. Edgar Martinez, I think, was a first baseman for the first like third to half of his career before he became just a DH. So like all these guys that have gotten in as DHs weren't only DHs. So are they going to hold that against Jordan?
I feel like no in this case because his batting is just so outstanding. This year he has a 184 WRC plus. And the guy's going to finish third in the MVP.
Yeah, I was going to say he's the second best hitter in the American League. Yeah. Actually, I think now he's the second best hitter in the major leagues.
Probably,
after Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado's kind of rough last couple weeks.
He's got a 6 WAR season, and that's 100% from offense because he's really not providing any defensive value.
Yeah. Yeah. So
any other like candidates on the Astros? Like I don't really think Alex Bregman's a Hall of Famer or anything.
No, I think he's the Hall of Good.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's the Hall of Very Good. I think he's the Hall of Good. Jeremy Pena? No, I think Will Smith would be like the other guy, and I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Not that guy.
I think he's a good reliever for most of his career, but I don't know. We do have
Alex
Aaron
Bregman's
Judge.
got 30 WAR.
Does he really? How old is he now?
He is 28.
Well, he could make a case.
Yeah.
How many home runs has he got?
138.
So he'd be one of the lower power third basemen, but
yeah, he's definitely not got enough power. It doesn't seem.
Yeah. So yeah, Judge is up again right now. Yep. But yeah, I think that pretty well kind of taps out the Astros. So we got 3 that are like we've got some pretty good confidence in. Maybe not for sure locks, but they've got a really good chance. We might get a fourth guy out of some of these young guys coming up. There's some young pitchers who have had solid starts to their career. They don't really seem like they're like elite guys, but I mean, we've seen that happen before too, where some guy just comes out of nowhere and just blows your socks off. I mean, Albert was a 13th round draft pick. So, I think the next team that probably has the best shot is the San Diego Padres. And if you would have asked me that at the beginning of the year, I would not have said this. But after the trade deadline, I have a lot more confidence. So the guys that were already there, Manny Machado, I think, has a pretty solid shot. Then we get to Tatis, and his PED suspension raises some questions. And he's still really young. So we'll have to see how that pans out, just career-wise, and then if they hold him out because of this suspension at the age of 23. But then at the trade deadline, they just went out and got Juan Soto. He is
and of all the young players we've talked about today, he's the one that seems most likely to be on that Hall of Fame track.
I mean, hell, I would put him in now, and he's not even at 10 years. Like, he is that good of a player. Like, I have no doubt in my mind Soto is on that track. He just reminds me of a young Miguel Cabrera, but better.
Okay, I got one more interjection about Aaron Judge. I think he's getting frustrated with all these walks. He just reached out of the zone at ball 4 and fouled a pitch off.
Yeah. Oh, his face on that too. Yeah, he's pretty pissed. But yeah, so Soto I think is a lock. And I mean, we could honestly do an entire episode just on his career stats. And walk number 4 for Aaron Judge. Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable.
Somebody just pitched to this guy.
That's the other thing. They're just so scared. No one wants to be on those highlight reels for the rest of history.
Why not?
As the guy that gave up the home run.
I would love to be that guy, because that means that David Phelps, or whatever his name is, it David Phelps?
Yeah.
Yeah. David Phelps would actually matter in history.
Yeah, that's why Phil Bickford did that on Friday.
I think it's exactly why Phil Bickford did that. That and the fact that he was a former teammate of Albert, so I think they're kind of buddy-buddy. And same with Heaney. Like, I kind of think they were giving him pitches. But honestly, for 700, I don't care. Give him that pitch. Like, that man deserves it. And he put together one hell of a season to get 2 away. Get him the round number. We digress. Back to the Padres. So Machado, I think he's in. I think he's on the right track. I think he could be in. Tatis has the talent. Soto is on the right track. Now, how do we get to 4?
Josh Hader.
I think Josh Hader. So kind of along the same lines as Kimbrel, like, are we going to see one of the relievers of our generation? And the 3 guys that I see as the most likely for that reliever is Craig Kimbrel, Josh Hader, and Kenley Jansen. And Hader has been the best reliever in baseball since he came up. Granted, he's only, 4? This is year 5?
For Hader?
For Hader. I think this is year 5.
Is that right? Only year 5?
Yeah,
no. It must be year 6, right?
No, because I think he's there next year.
He is there next year, but they might have got an extra year.
He's at the end of the season, he will be at 5.115 years of service time. So pretty close to 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah,
kind of back to my Rizzo got hit by a pitch. Back to my general point about like relievers, though. After Josh Hader got traded to the Padres, like, he looked terrible for a stretch, right? So these guys can look like the most dominant pitcher on the planet and just completely fall off the cliff, like the next year or the next week or whatever it may be. So it's hard to say what he's going to do for the second half of his career. But if it's anything like the first half, then he could probably be in the Hall of Fame.
Now, I will say he has been improving with the Padres here in the last couple of weeks. He got his 36 ERA or whatever it was down to 9.49. So we're moving in the right direction. And to be honest, he wasn't his stellar self with Milwaukee this year either. With a 4.24.
He was ERA. Until at one point when he gave up like 9 runs in 1 inning and just wrecked his numbers.
That's fair. But yeah, he's finally got up to an even 0 WAR with the Padres, which is a pretty big step forward from where he was right after the trade deadline. Because he lost some WAR there pretty quick. He's not really on pace as far as like career WAR though, because through 6 seasons he is at 9.4. So he's a little on the low end. It's looking like he's probably going to be somewhere around that 15 WAR mark. Just kind of guessing based on how long relievers typically last when they're the dominant ones. So That'd be interesting. I don't know. What do you think?
Mets and Yankees.
We'll hit these two pretty quick, but yeah, I think the Mets and Yankees are probably the other two good shot teams. Let's start with the Yankees because I think they're actually the least likely out of the two.
I don't see the Yankees as having 4 Hall of Famers on their roster right now. I see Garrett Cole as a Hall of Famer.
Yep. I was going to say, I'm not even sure I see 3.
Yeah, I don't think I see anyone who's surefire other than Cole right now.
I personally think Aroldis Chapman is probably a Hall of Famer. Just from he was kind of like the game had been moving towards more power pitching in relief, but that guy that was like hitting 105 constantly and doing it for 10 years and being like that other dominant closer, like until this year, he was still kind of that guy. Like he's obviously had to change his game because he's not throwing 105 anymore. He's throwing like 102, 103. But I feel like he did change the game, and I think that's something that they're going to look for when they're voting for the Hall. Is the character clause going to keep him out? Maybe. So that'll be interesting. But I don't know who's the next guy. Even if he's just Hall of Very Good, who's the next guy? Is it Judge? Is it Stanton? Is it someone else? Rizzo? I don't know.
I think maybe Judge, if he can keep up this level of like MVP version of Judge for like 3 more years, then we're talking.
Yeah, because Judge in really 1, 2, 3. In 6 real seasons. And
he's only played 3 full ones, right?
He's only played 3 full ones, but he's already at 218 home runs. Like,
you can say he's already there, but he's already 30.
That's the other part, though. Like, if he would have debuted at like 20 and had this first 6 years of his career with only 3 full seasons and 218 home runs already, he'd be pretty much on the Juan Soto track, in my opinion.
I think the main problem with Judge is not like how good he's going to be, and I think his peak may actually continue for a few years, like I'm talking about. But the fact that he started so late, and the fact that of his 6 first full seasons, 3 of them were either pandemic ruined or like injury shortened. That's going to kill him. He just hasn't played enough games to accumulate the numbers he needs.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think the other guy that is worth at least talking about is Giancarlo Stanton. So Giancarlo Stanton, when he started with the Marlins, I think was looking like he could be one of these guys that was going to be 600
all-time home run hitter, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he came up his rookie season, 100 games, 22 home runs. First full season, he played 150 games, 34. Next year, 37 and 24 in a slightly shortened season, 37. Then he only played a half season in 15, still hit 27. 120 games in 16, 27. 59 home runs in 2017. And then 38 home runs his first year with the Yankees. And then he basically got bit by the injury bug in 2019, only played 18 games. 2020 happened. He played less than half of that shortened season. And then these last couple, last year was pretty good again. 35 home runs, played 140 games, a 273 average. But he really wasn't like stellar. I mean, he has no defensive value. It's actually quite poor. And then this year, he's just not the same guy.
Yeah, he was playing a lot better, and then he just got hurt and hasn't been the same since then. So, and he still has 28 home runs this year, so it's not like anything to sneeze at. But it's like he's definitely slowed down quite a bit, and he's already 32. It'll be hard for him to get back to those like 30 homer seasons, which weirdly he has not had a lot of those. He's mostly had like 20 homer seasons and like a 59 in there.
Yeah. He did hit almost a 40 twice.
Yeah.
But I kind of see him as more of a Dave Kingman type guy. Like, he's one of the more feared power hitters in history, but he wasn't able to put together the type of resume necessary to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I really think that the Yankees in 2022 really maybe only have 1 to 2 Hall of Famers, which is really weird to say because it just feels like they should have more. And it feels like the way Judge is playing this year that he would be in that group. But I think it's the rest of the factors around his career to hold him out. He does still have a shot. It's not high. It's maybe 10%. I think Stanton still has a shot. It's maybe somewhere around 10%. I think Rizzo has a shot, somewhere around 5 to 10%. They're ballot guys. They might get some votes, but I don't think they're ever going to hit that 75% threshold. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
All right, so final team that I kind of want to talk about, because this one could be interesting, and that is the New York Mets. Really weird to say, because I never thought the Mets would have any Hall of Famer ever again. I thought they were going to be the lol Mets forever. But here we are, and Max Scherzer is one of their 2 best pitchers, and I don't even know if he's 1 or if he's 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Max, he's a shoe-in for the Hall of Fame, right?
I mean, he's getting in just on the 2 colored eyes thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But
DeGrom's the interesting one because of just how weird his career has been.
And how late it started.
How late it started. He was like Rookie of the Year when he was like 27, right?
Yeah, 26.
26. And then he wasn't like a elite dominant guy right when he started. He was very, very good. He obviously won the Rookie of the Year. Then it just seems like he's been getting better year over year. But then the thing about DeGrom that we always can never forget about is his injury history and how many times he seems to have missed time. And it's just been odd.
Yeah, so for DeGrom, it was right around that 2017 is when he really broke out. That's when his Ks per 9 jumped from just under 9 to almost 11. He pitched 200 innings for the first time in 2017. He had his ERA was actually still kind of up there. It was at about a 3.5. But that was the first time that we saw DeGrom as being like, oh, this guy's really pretty good. Then 18 was the phenomenal season. His most innings pitched at 217. His Ks per 9 was up to 11.16, which, spoiler alert, his Ks per 9 has gone up every single year from 2016 to now.
Yeah, has anyone checked this DeGrom guy for being like a robot or something? He throws 100 miles per hour on average now. Back then, he was throwing like 93. It's very odd that a 34-year-old now is throwing 100 miles per hour.
Do we need to check him for the juice?
Something. It's scary.
But yeah, but he had just... did he win the Cy Young in 18?
I think so.
It was his 1.7 ERA with a 1.99 FIP, 217 innings. Just like an absolute ungodly amount of strikeouts, I think, that year. 269 strikeouts.
He won the Cy Young in 18 and 19.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's another interesting thing on his resume. Multiple Cy Youngs. And
he's also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 6 top 10 Cy Young finishes.
How many top 5s?
3.
Okay. What was the other one that wasn't victory?
He finished 3rd in 2020.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So Cy Young, 3rd in Cy Young, 3 years in a row.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so his case is going to be really interesting. And I mean, the other question is he even going to hit the service time number of 10?
Yeah, he's about to make $50 million a year next year for some team.
So
by the Mets, but
with only 58 innings this year, and with all the injuries, does he still get a full year of service time?
Yeah, injured list counts.
Okay, so he'll make the 10 years then. But because he'll basically be at just under 9 at the end of this year. All right, but anyway, so that's our 2 like slam dunk Mets Hall of Famers. Slam dunk and then really intriguing, but I think he'll get like 50% ballots at least. I think he's that kind of guy. He'll be really close if he doesn't get in.
With him, he's another guy where it really matters like how he finishes out the career.
Yeah.
If he can stay at the dominant level, then I think he'll get there.
I think if he can stay at his dominant level for even like 2 more years,
yeah.
I think he's right there on the precipice.
Yep.
Now, where we go from here is intriguing because we've got some really good kind of baseball middle-aged, if you will, guys in like Francisco Lindor. He is 28 years old. This is his 8th season in the bigs. He's already amassed 42 F4, 183 home runs for a shortstop. He's one of the better defensive shortstops in the league. He's a 278 average guy. He doesn't really strike out. He walks a solid amount. He's got some steals and some speed there. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't count him out. I also wouldn't put him in the absolutely category. But he's still having these 6 WAR, 7 WAR seasons. And he's only 28. So
yeah. I think that's what he's got going for him, that his career started when he was 21. He plays full seasons every year. This guy feels like, I mean, obviously something can change in the next 10, 12 years, but he feels like a guy that's going to be still playing when he's like 39.
Yeah. He might not be playing shortstop.
Actually, he will be, right? His contract goes until he's 39 or whatever.
Yeah, he's a free agent in 2032. So, yeah.
So 10 years from now.
10 years from now. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's got a shot. He's a career 119 WRC plus guy. Like, I would put him there as probably the 3rd most likely guy on this Mets team. Number 4 is, I think, maybe the difficult part because, like, Pete's really good. He started late. He's not really a whole lot more than a power hitter, I don't think.
I think he's a pretty complete hitter. But yeah, like what you're saying, he started pretty late. He
started late, and for a first baseman, he's not one of the defensive first basemen like Freddie Freeman and Paul Goldschmidt and Joey Votto that are getting them kind of up there in conversations. He's not been. Yeah. So I struggle to see Pete as being a Hall of Fame guy. I think he's right there with Stanton as being Hall of Very Good. What about Edwin Diaz? Like, I don't think he's quite in that echelon of like relievers in like Craig Kimbrel, Aroldis Chapman, Kenley Jansen, and Josh Hader, but I think he's probably the next guy.
Yeah,
so
he's already put up 12 WAR in his career, and he's just 28.
Yeah, so like he's got some time left. He could amass some more WAR. I think he could put together a solid resume. I don't really know where I would comp him with like recent guys that have been on ballots for relievers. But like Joe Nathan is like the guy who's not in that's like the closest, I think, for relievers. And I'm trying to think of where I would put some of these guys next to Joe Nathan. And it's a really hard question to ask or to answer. Yeah. But, yeah. So, all All right, I guess let's recap here. So I think the Cardinals are a 4 Hall of Famer team. Right? So we got 1. Dodgers, 4 Hall of Famer team?
Nope.
No. All right. Astros.
Actually, I'll say yes. I'll say yes for the Dodgers. I don't know who the 4th Hall of Famer is, but
I think they have a lot of guys who could potentially be in that at some point. Right. I think there will be a 4th.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Astros, 4 Hall of Fame team?
Nope.
Yankees?
Nope.
Mets?
Nope.
We did not talk about them. The San Diego Padres?
Nope.
So we're sitting at 2 teams that you and I can see in 2022 is having 4 future Hall of Famers, which if you remember at the beginning of this conversation here about 30 minutes ago, since 1969, there have only been 46 individual team seasons where that has occurred. Only 25 separate teams with separate rosters have done it. And so that's averaging like half of 1 per year. Or if you're just going a team season, a little less than 1 per year. So having 2 is kind of a big deal. Like, and only one of those teams is a juggernaut team too. I feel like the Cardinals probably should be, but the pitching's not there. Some of the depth guys aren't there to be on that same level as the Dodgers, but that core of that team, as far as superstardom, I think is kind of right there in the same echelon. So,
well, it's kind of weird actually, because like 2 of those guys are going out right after the end of the year.
Yeah.
And it's not like Yadi's like playing. It's not like he's playing well at all. So
yeah, he's not. And Albert just came back for his retirement tour. So he's not like been here for a long time. I mean, he was, but he left for a long time too.
It's definitely a very unusual situation.
Yeah. But it will go down on this list. So that'd be interesting. So you got any final thoughts on this topic or anything else that we need to discuss?
Well, maybe we'll talk about it some other time, but just what does it mean to have so many Hall of Famers on one roster at the same time in terms of like, do those teams do well? Are they just bad like the 1970 Cubs with their 5 Hall of Famers that were second place and like barely over 500?
So I actually do want to revisit this from a historical perspective after the playoffs, because I could tell you right now, the record for Hall of Famers on a single team is 9.
Well, 9. Who's that?
It was 1932 Yankees, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it makes sense. But yeah, I think that's a great question to go look at. It's like, and to be fair, these teams from the very distant past, it makes sense that they're going to have more because you have guys that are added in later as people go back and look at their careers and go, that was actually pretty important to the era. So let's go add them in through all the era committees and everything. And we're kind of just looking at guys who are potentially going to be BBWAA voted in guys in their 10 ballot years, 5 years after they retire. So with that being said, Adam Wainwright could very well go in a veteran era committee in 35 years. Who knows? Same with David Price. So we could see some of these teams eventually get to that 5-6 player thing. I think Tommy Edman is a Hall of Famer. I'm telling you. But yeah, so I really liked this thought experiment. So thank you for letting me bring this one in. I'm curious what all of our listeners think on this one. So make sure to reach out to us on like in the YouTube comments or Facebook or Twitter at Getaway Day Pod, and kind of let us know your thoughts on what teams might have 4 Hall of Famers and justification. Like, if you're going to come out and tell me that like the 2022 Oakland Athletics have 4 Hall of Famers, that's a bit of a stretch. I'm going to need you to explain yourself, but we'll listen. And if we get some really good feedback there, maybe we'll bring in some teams that we didn't discuss or some players that we didn't discuss here in a future episode when we revisit this topic. So yeah, so thank you very much. Like I said, make sure to check out our YouTube channel. I have some baseball cards actually sitting in front of me that I am going to open and record and post on our YouTube page. And this is the 2022 Topps Fire. So that'll be fun. Look out for that one. You can, please like like our videos there and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to hit that little notification bell so that you get notifications whenever we post new content. What am I forgetting? Follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting app as well. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, all those. We're there. If we're not on your favorite one, reach out to me. I'll figure out how to get there. Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. My name's Mason. His name's Gautam. And that is all for us today.
Peace.
Thank you very much.